Welcome to Scoop World Order. It is Sunday night. It's Selection Sunday. It doesn't mean anything for the Buckeyes, but we are on spring break for the Ohio State football team. They got two good practices in. We got a lot of buzz about a lot of players. We're going to go through that. We have a new running back that looks like he's in the fold for good. A lot of stuff going on. We are going to be breaking down what goes on during spring break for the coaches, the players, what do guys do? Some guys stay back. Some guys like to go party. It's whatever. And we take your questions, as always. So we're going to get into this episode. Super excited. It's been a couple of days. With that being said, as always, thank you guys so much. We are growing. We're about to hit a milestone in growth, so we appreciate you guys. Please click like, click subscribe, and also click the alert bell. If you guys enjoy these live shows, that alert will let you know when we go live. We are doing it consistently, 6-7 days a week. We love doing it. It's a blast to do. Adds a lot of buzz and excitement to the show, so it's always fun to do. So we appreciate you guys. If you guys have not subscribed to BuckeyeScoop.com, now is the time to do it as spring ball is kicking off and we are getting into spring football, summer conditioning, and then fall camp. It is going to be fantastic. The site is buzzing, super active message board, incredible community. If you are a big-time Ohio State football fan, it is the place to be. We'd love to have you. Consider joining BuckeyeScoop.com. With that being said, time to bring in my good friend, Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
Doing great. Just waiting for the Buckeyes' name to be called on Selection Sunday. Wondering where they're going to get seated out here in March Madness. Pretty excited about that, and ready to talk some football as well.
I think, their seating is either Panama City or Fort Lauderdale, or if they have enough NIL money, Vegas or South Beach. I don't think we're going to be seeing. We're not even going to make the NIT, which is. It's almost crazy when you think about how many resources we invest into that program. The fact that we didn't make any tournament, we had the worst losing percentage, I think, in like 25 years. So, Nevada, we're not going to talk basketball for long, but what would your remedy be for the basketball program at this point? Obviously, we have Chris Holtman for the foreseeable future just because we just extended him. But what would you do to turn the tide of the basketball program?
Get better players. That's what you need. Get better players. Period. And. Right. If you don't have players, man, it's not about the X's and O's, the Jimmy and Joes, and Holtman's fine. He's not like, who are we going to get that's going to be better? That's the problem. He always comes back to that, and he just needs to recruit better, get a little lucky. They were looking good at the beginning of the year. They were looking good at the end of the year. They just the middle part of the year just was awful, and they were awful, and. It's the game is so overpowered towards shooting that I guess they just figured out at the end of the year that Gale can shoot. And I don't know where he's been the whole year. He's been buried on the bench, but he nearly shot them into the tournament. But go Bucks, go basketball. Draft Greg. We need to sign Greg a class with Greg Oden and Daquan Cook and Mike Conley again. That's what we need.
You're with it, man. It's all about with NIL and the way we can do it. Maybe Bronny James, the savior. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the recruiting class. We're going to get into football. That's why you guys are here. What is up, Ron, CJ, Eric, Neil, the 411 dudes are here. Appreciate you guys being early in here. As always, spring football, they get the two practices out of the way before spring break. This was something Urban started to do with Tress. It was always, spring break, we do conditioning, spring break, and then we'd start. We do heavier weeks where we do 3-4 practices a week. With Ryan, he stretches it out a little bit more, 3-4 practices, a little bit more space. Does a couple before spring break. Nevada, is there an advantage to getting a couple of practices done, getting them on film, and then having like this week to kind of digest the myriad of film that they have in the bank to start spring practice?
I think there's a huge advantage to doing it. I think it almost kind of like it extends spring football, and I think it's really, really smart. I think it gives an opportunity for the coaches to kind of get ahead of the game in terms of figuring out what they have instead of trying to figure it out on the fly and kind of running the practices consecutively. I think it's a huge advantage. And just another reason why Urban Meyer was always ahead of the game and on all these things and was really cutting edge. And no, I think it's a great strategy and smart way to continue it.
I like it because, again, you kind of get the acclimation practices are kind of the ones that suck because you're just in spider pads. Spider pads are basically like little fake shoulder pads or little pillow pads. And those, there's no contact. You have no, you know, knee pads, thigh boards in. So, you know, you can't really do any sort of physical contact. There's no tackling. So you kind of get the BS practices out of the way. I think it's good for guys that are new to the program, guys that are transfers, also guys that are mid-year guys like Luke Montgomery, Carnell Tate. They kind of get the feel of what practice is like, where to go, stretch lines. You know, it sounds stupid, but, you know, when it's your first day, you know, that takes a little bit of energy to figure out, you know, where am I supposed to go? You know, you don't want to, you know, so then when they come back from spring break, they're already going to kind of know the routine a little bit. They're kind of know the, kind of how practice flows, if that makes sense. And I think that, you know, there's going to be some big time stuff coming with these guys after spring ball. The spring break is over with. They'll get into some physicality and some practice. Nevada, who are some guys? We've caught up with a lot of people over the last 3 days. Who are some guys that you've heard buzz about? We've done some nuggets. We've named, you know, a handful of names. I've heard kind of a rundown on probably about 20 of the guys that are, you know, the movers on the roster. You know, you don't really need a lot on guys like JT Tuimoloau and Tommy Eichenberg, you know, who's not doing anything this spring. But, you know, there's some guys that are really having big opportunities in front of them, either due to people moving on to the NFL or guys that are being able to kind of be in roles like Cody Simon gets to play Mike all spring with the ones because Tommy Eichenberg isn't doing much. Who are some names that you've heard standing out through the first 2 days and really through winter conditioning as well?
Well, I'll give you a couple of names on offense, and I'll give you a couple on defense. On offense, I'd go with Joe Royer and Carson Hinsman as being two guys that have, really kind of caught people's eyes. Carson comes into, competing for that center spot, really kind of a big question mark because people really haven't seen much of him, and he's he really looks the part, really has the feel of one of those veterans that's going to step in and play right away on the offensive line. And Joe Royer just catches everything, great frame, had, a tough year last year with all the well-chronicled problems with the passing of his mom and some kind of a lingering illness. And now he's back in full go, and he looks great out there at the tight end spot. Tight end looking like a position of strength for the Buckeyes. And defensively, I'll go with Kai Stokes is the name that we've heard a lot about. We've been excited about him for a year. I continue to be excited about him. I think he's having a really good spring. Had great winter conditioning, and then kind of a blast in the past. And Denzel Burke, Denzel finally healthy, really playing well. You're really locking down one of the sides. Really, kind of making a move to kind of find that form back from his freshman year. So, no, I think a lot to be excited about this spring with the Buckeyes, and they've been in good health, which is really important, and having a very productive spring so far.
I think a guy like Denzel is fascinating because he really started off on fire when he got here as a true freshman, played a lot. I remember specifically, against Oregon, the game that we lost at home, he was really playing well, high level, kind of out on an island, scared of nothing. So sophomore year, we're thinking, potential All Big Ten, potential, going into year 3 that he's an early out first round type. And year 2 did not go as planned, but was actually very poor. And he's a guy that I think that, when these guys go into year 3, a lot of these guys really buckle down and lock in because, it's like, hey, do I want to have that option to go pro after year 3? Or am I going to be a guy who's stuck here for year 4 as a cornerback? Our great corners are gone after 3 years. Guys like Marshawn, Denzel, they dip out. They're Ashton Yabodi. Those guys are gone. They're getting paid high round picks, big money picks, big second contracts, and that's what he wants. And again, that's to Ohio State's advantage. And I think when you bring in a kid like Davison Igbinosun, is that now you've got a guy who played better than you last year, and he's a year younger than you. He was a true freshman last year. And so, there's always, even if you guys are both the 2 starting corners, you always want to be the best corner on the team in the room. You want to be the guy that the coaches point to for the drills. Because when I played with Alex Boone, and we were really competitive. I mean, we both were starting at different spots. He was a left tackle, I was a right tackle. But we always wanted to beat each other. We wanted to grade out higher than each other. We wanted to beat each other in sprints and workouts and stuff like that. And I think that's good. I think that's healthy. I don't think that's a negative thing, but I think that, when you've got a guy like Davison who shows up who's ultra talented, tall, long, played fantastic last year, I think that, that it makes guys say, oh, well, that's what you think. You're going to bring in this guy because you think he's better than I am. Well, I'm going to show you, like, have a mentality like that. I don't think that's a negative thing. I really don't. I think the guys, based on the level of talent around them and in them, it just, it's the iron sharpens iron. And when these guys head off to that practice field, man, in the fall, man, you got to look across from Marvin, from Emeka, from, Brandon Ennis, Carnell Tate, Julian Fleming. I mean, there's guys that can eat your lunch if you're not ready to go. And, it's a competitive top drawer type atmosphere. When our corners and DBs do ones on ones, it's something that the NFL scouts are going to congregate around because they're watching great on great, and those are the kind of reps that they like to see. A guy that I've heard a lot about, Josh Fryer has a real opportunity here, and he's a guy that he was trending towards being our starting guard in 21. And then, Stud and the offensive staff decided to put DeWan in. And again, when that was the year that, there were people that were exceptionally stupid that would talk about us playing 4 tackles on the offensive line. And I'm like, guys, like, those are 4 NFL offensive linemen, top drawer NFL first-year starters. So you got to play them all. If you have 4 Michael Jordans on your team, you're not going to say, well, we're only allowed to play 2 because we only have 2 guards. Like, no, you figure out a way to put all 4 on the floor and let them go beat whoever they go against. So when you've got 4 tackles of the caliber of Paris, DeWan, Nick Petit-Frere, and Thayer, you got to play them. So that kind of forced Josh Fryer, who was starting at left guard to start camp, into a reserve role. And he did the backup tight end thing where he wore the 41, was functional, did a good job. And then he tore his ACL against Michigan in warmups, kind of a catastrophic, strange injury that happened. But, he had to rebound from that, rehab, get right. And then, he was our sixth man last year, played when DeWan was injured for a game, played guard against Michigan when we lost Matt Jones, who was injured versus Maryland. And now he's got a real opportunity to start at left tackle. And I know Justin Fry went to him, said, hey, do you want to give left tackle a go? You've been the right tackle all year last year. I think it was kind of strange that Zen played left tackle all last year and Josh played right tackle all last year, but went to Josh Fryer, the old guy in the room, the guy that's played the most in the room, as a tackle, and said, hey, do you want to be the left tackle? And he's up for the challenge. I mean, it's a tough position to play. He's got to flip sides, switch his footwork, switch his hands. But there's a major opportunity. He's a great athlete. He's strong. He's a nasty kid, real tough. I mean, the guys and people I talked to in the program say he's one of the toughest guys on the entire team. So, he's not going to be as pretty as Paris, as athletic as Paris, but, not everybody is like Paris. Paris is a 1 in a billion type guy. There's a lot of gritty, tough guys that get it done at tackle in the NFL and in college, and I think Josh Fryer can be that guy. Anyone else, Nevada? I mean, I am excited. Were there any things that you gleaned from, the people we talked to in the program, position changes, formation change stuff, anything that kind of piqued your interest that you've heard over the last week or so?
Yeah, for sure. But I want to mention one thing that I just thought of that I actually think is kind of funny. It's like for the past 10 years, all I've heard is that we didn't recruit enough offensive tackles, and then we have 4 tackles playing on the offensive line. I don't know why that just cracked me up. Just the thought of that, I'm like, wait a second, I thought we didn't have enough tackles. Now all we have is tackles. But I digress. Yeah, no. What I think's been interesting is with Ohio State right now. You know, watching what they're doing with the linebackers is really particularly interesting because it's the whole question of linebacker safety and where do they put Sonny Styles and what do they do with with C.J. Hicks. I think that's been one of the more interesting stories of the spring, and watching how they're playing around with these different formations with Sonny and Lathan Ransom and Josh Proctor, and then moving them around and dropping Sonny down into a linebacker spot, and then pulling up a guy like Kai Stokes or pulling up a guy like Jihad Carter, and I think that's just been really one of the more interesting things because I think it's really going to just determine how they're kind of going this year with that do they run the jack at all this year? Or do they run the jack with greater frequency? Do they walk Sonny down on rundowns from the safety spot? Do they bring Jihad Carter in there on passing downs? But I think that's really been the most interesting thing to me, is just watching the kind of the dance with the safeties and the linebackers, and experimenting with three safeties, three linebackers, moving them back and forth. I just find that really interesting, and I never get tired of watching those different formations, because you can see Knowles is just trying to figure out who fits best together and who can kind of cover, because that's really going to be the key, because you can't have a safety back there who can't cover. And the question is, can Sonny can he cover well enough to be an everyday safety for him? And I think that's really been one of the story for the defense for the 2023 spring, and something I'm going to keep an eye on into the fall.
I think that the strange thing about the jack is, as much as I studied it, there isn't a human being on this earth that studied the jack position more than I did last year coming into the year, because I was actually really excited about it. I watched how we did it or how Jim Knowles did it at Oklahoma State, how it was an attacking, pass rushing, dynamic position, and then I watched how he deployed it, because I've watched every snap from the season, watched the 50 jack snaps or whatever we had in the entire year, or 100 jack snaps, and it was a lot more passive than I remembered at Oklahoma State. It was a lot more of a, you take on the puller, or you kind of clog the hole and make a pile for the linebacker to scrape and make the play. And unfortunately, there were, a couple of the long runs we had, like the jack did his job, but the linebacker didn't scrape and get there. And when you do that, it is really bad. But I just think that the way we used it, and the way that the rotation and the lack of consistent deployment of the jack really hurt. It stunted Jack Sawyer's growth. It was kind of like if you said that, okay, you're a hockey player and you're the starting extra attacker when we pull the goalie, or if there's a delayed penalty and the goalie skates to the bench and you jump on the ice. And it's like, okay, great. So I'm a starter, but it's only at the end of the game, or if there's a delayed penalty, but I'm a starter, but so like that's kind of what the jack was, because we used it probably, I don't know, 5%, 8% of the season. So that's great if you're starting on that, but if you never use it, then does it really matter? Because the starting ends last year were Zach Harrison and JT Tuimoloau, and Jack Sawyer was the starting jack. So that's cool that you're in the jack package, you're the starter, but when you never run it, it doesn't really matter. And I think that it hurt the consistency and being able to get in the flow as a defensive player that's used to playing 40 or 50 plays a game. So one of the things I loved is the fact that Jack Sawyer's back to defensive end, hand on the ground, playing every play, getting in the flow of the game, and making an impact. Because Jack, as down as people are on the guy, he had 4.5 sacks last year. He led the team in sacks, and he played probably 35%, 40% as many snaps as Zach Harrison and JT Tuimoloau. So it'll be interesting to see when he gets a full cachet of snaps, how much his production goes up, because I think he's a guy that is a stock that is undervalued, and I would buy a lot of right now, just because they're really down on the kid. It's funny how, our fan base, when a kid comes in 5 stars, he's a white defensive end, so obviously he's got to be the next Nick Bosa, the next Joey Bosa, the third Bosa, whatever. And he starts off, has a decent freshman year. Second year, he kind of gets put into this funky jack role. And again, it wasn't as much of an attacking role as it was at Oklahoma State. And I think the biggest reason that is because Larry Johnson has been a defensive line coach for 40 years. He's put more guys into the first round than any defensive line coach in the history of college football. In his entire career, all he's ever run is 4 down linemen. He's never been a part of a 3-4 defense, a 30 defense, an odd defense. So to do the jack, you essentially have to run an odd defense. You basically take one of your 4 down guys and you make him a walk around guy, which is what the jack is. And that's something that I don't think Larry liked. I don't think he was comfortable with. And when it came to time to rush the passer and pass rush, we're in 4 down, because that's what, Larry's bread and butter is pass rush. So he doesn't rush the passer with a 0 nose guard and 2 head up defensive ends right on the the head up on the tackles like you do in a traditional odd defense. So he wants his guys to be wind out in 3 techniques, wide defensive ends, coming off the edge. Again, I know Larry Johnson's defense because I played against it 5 years. I coached against it 3 years. I've studied it for years. I know exactly what he does, and it's never changed. So, when you throw the Jack into it, it's a much different dynamic than he's used to, comfortable with, or proficient with. And I think that was a major issue with why the Jack didn't work as well as we'd hoped it would last year. Nevada, obviously they're off this week. So there's not obviously going to be any news, other than the guys are going to be out, wilding out on spring break and the coaches get to get away for a week. But what are you looking forward to when they get back the following week? They get back to work. They put the pads on. What are some of the things that you're looking forward to hearing from the football program inside the WAC?
Well, I mean, look, obviously the question on everybody's mind is the quarterback derby, and how's it going to break down between Kyle McCord and Devin Brown when the bullets start flying and they get into scrimmaging, and to see who's truly got a leg up. Right now we're speculating, based upon what we're hearing, kind of reading the tea leaves and kind of how things went in the winter about Kyle, and how he's nosed ahead and how he may be the perceived leader in the clubhouse, but he goes out to practice, throws 3 interceptions, and things could flip in a hurry. So I think that's, like I said, that's going to be just one of the great stories. It's one of the great quarterback derbies because it's truly wide open. It's not one of those things that that where it's a competition, but it's really not a competition. I mean, this is wide open, and lots to see there. And defensively, we talked about the safeties, we talked to the linebacker and the cornerbacks. We'll see if Davison is as good as I think he is, if Denzel can continue his rise, and if Jordan Hancock continue his great play, and see if we can find a 4th or 5th guy to throw into the mix to compete for the cornerback spots. Because look, 2023 is it's a national championship year, and with Ohio State you say that pretty much every year, but some years you say it with more conviction. And this is a year you can say it with absolute conviction, because I truly believe Ohio State is top to bottom the best team in the country, and need a bounce and a bit of luck and some a little good fortune. 2023 should be a national championship year. So lots to be excited about, and can't wait to see that quarterback derby for sure.
I agree with you. I think that this team could easily win a national championship last year. I know that, obviously everyone's got consternation about the offensive line, the turnover, DeJuan Paris, whatever. But I think our skill can overwhelm opponents, can make up for the offensive line. I think that, schematically, if you have some new guys on the offensive line, again, I say this every single podcast, it's easy to pass block and pass protect if you help those guys out schematically. There's things you can do that make it a lot easier. You don't have to make it ridiculous. Again, it's like, with a quarterback, give them, when you have a young quarterback, something I love is give him some nice, easy throws to start the game. Don't make him try to hit like a 75-yard post route, let him hit some nice little easy completions. Let Emeka get loose. Nobody can check Emeka because he's too quick in the slot. He's got too much agility. Let him run a nice little easy route, little crossing route. Let Kyle get a nice, easy completion, get the blood flowing, get the butterflies out. You can do the same thing with offensive tackles. You help them out, chip, move the pocket a little bit, some of those easier blocks. And also the biggest thing, and I plead with Brian Hartline, is look, run the football. If you run the football early in the game, let those guys come off the rock, let them soften up the defensive lineman a little bit, pulverize them a little bit. It really helps. It helps their confidence. Those guys naturally like to go forward and lean on the D tackles and beat them up a little bit. And it makes them less effective in the pass rush because they're beat to hell, and you got to just keep pounding them. So I just think that that's going to be important to run the ball early, especially when we have that really soft opening to the schedule before we go out to South Bend. We got 3 cupcakes to open it up, man. So there's a time to get these guys nice, confident, ready to rock, coming off the rock, and it's going to be interesting. I think that the most intriguing position right now on the entire team to me is my old position, right tackle. And you've got Zen, you've got Tigray, you've got George Fitzpatrick, you've got a lot of guys fighting for that spot. That's kind of the one that's wide open. I feel like, if you gave me an ink pen, I could put Josh Fryer, I could put Donnie, Carson or Jacob James, I think are the leaders for center. Right guard, obviously Matt Jones, 6-year senior, is going to win that job. But the right tackle is going to be very interesting. And that's going to be one that I'm really excited to see in the spring game, because those guys are going to get, those guys are all going to play. None of those guys are to the point in their careers where they're going to get pulled out early or they're going to get taken care of just because they haven't done anything. When you're an older veteran guy, you get pulled early in the spring game, but none of those guys are that. So that'll be really fascinating to watch. So Give us you guys fire with those questions in the comments. Also, I would love to know what you guys are up to for spring break. I have no spring break plans as of yet. Nevada, you doing anything for spring break?
Yeah, always, man. I'm constantly working for Buckeye Scoop every day during spring break. Just grinded 22, 23 hours a day. So that's pretty much what my spring break is going to look like.
You got like the little coconut with a little umbrella in it and little coffee bean for the walk, and then you just get on the board and just grind all day, getting nuggets ready to go.
Well,
Getting
that's
some film ready to go.
when you have the herniated disc, man. You take the walking out of the equation. So I just huddle by the computer all day.
You take the rascal scooter down, just drive it up and down, just get a little fresh
Oh
air.
man, terrible. Yeah, terrible.
I love it, my man. I know, man. It is funny. I always do fall back to the offensive line because it's my favorite. And it's funny, Eric, because Eric wrote, I always fall back to the offensive line because, the biggest reason is like I love talking about the offensive line because I like all the nuance stuff to it. But people are really nervous and obsessed with the offensive line for the 23 season. So there's going to be a lot of, because, I could talk about skill guys, but what am I supposed to say? Marvin Harrison is awesome. And Mecca's awesome. Best receiver maybe we've ever had. So, people sleep easier with that. Running backs, probably the best running back room we've ever had. Tight ends, fantastic. Quarterbacks will be great under Ryan Day. Like under Ryan Day, I never worry about the quarterbacks. So what's left? The O-line. And you lose 2 first-round tackles and a second or third round center, and people are just trying to figure out is that going to be the link that is weak, or are we going to be able to get it done? And I think we're going to get it done. I have a lot of confidence in Justin Fry and those guys, some prideful guys. So we're going to shift into recruiting. Sam Williams-Dixon looks like he's in the fold. He's going to be a tailback in this class, the 24 class. Pick North kid. He's basically local kid, tough kid, good runner. We're going to watch his film. He's got Penn State. He's got Tennessee. He's got Wisconsin. Looks like he's in the fold for us. Nevada, we're going to watch a little bit of this film. What are your thoughts on running back? Because running back right now, obviously, it's not going to hurt us this year that we didn't get Richard Young. We didn't get any of the guys that, Fletcher, any of the guys that were projected for in the 23 class. Didn't really hurt us, but do we have to get 2 running backs in this class, Nevada?
Well, I think you do, or you got to mine the portal aggressively, and that's always the wild card anymore. Recruiting, it's important, it's paramount. But look, you can fix some ails in the portal at any time, and running back's definitely a position that you could go portal looking, because all it takes is one guy that's sitting behind somebody else who's just better, but they're good enough to help you, and bang, there's your running back. So no, I think the running back situation is kind of an interesting one because, like you said, this year we're just talking about it's the best running back room in Ohio State. One of the best running back rooms in Ohio State history. We got tons of guys. We got guys. Boom. Next year, it's barren. I mean, it's really barren. So I think you've got to take 2 in this class. Or like I said, grab one out of the portal. But this is definitely a good get for the future. I like this kid a lot. I've liked him for a while, and was glad Ohio State offered.
Yeah, and people, he's a kid from Pickerington, so people are like, he's a shoe-in, whatever. But I like kids like this. I like these kids that they come in with a chip on their shoulder. They're tough kids, plays against good competition. I think it's going to be a plus guy. And again, I get excited about every running back. I was, my senior year, we had a kid named Brandon Sane, and we had Boom Herron. Brandon Sane was like the national guy everyone was excited about. Boom was kind of like a Sam Williams-Dixon type that people weren't as excited about. And Boom Herron ended up having a better career than Brandon Sane did. He was better at Ohio State, and then he was better in the NFL, had a nice little run in the NFL. But, I always get excited about some of these kids. This is a great little route out here. Again, he's a little guy, but he's quick. He's really quick. I mean, you don't see anybody catching this guy from behind. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they deploy him, who else they go after. I mean, I know there's some big fish out there that they're going after as well with him. I think that, with NIL, they're trying to get some Ohio kids secured early, and then they go after some of the whales, so to speak. But I like this kid's film. He runs behind his pads. He's tough. Again, I love the versatility of a kick returner just because you can never have enough kick returners, even though they've kind of taken the kickoff out of the game. But, this is the second one. Does he get to the house? No, just a long return. But, I like guys that you've seen him catch a long pass. You've seen him return a kick. Now you're going to see him. I believe is that him catching it? Oh, okay. Then he's not playing defense. No, he's getting a pick. So, he's playing defense as well. So, again, I haven't watched his film. We're just breaking it down. So this is all new to me. It's like it is to you guys. But yeah, I like the film. Nevada, over the last few cycles, who are some of your favorite running backs that we've taken? Maybe some guys that were, surefire guys, some less heralded guys. Who are some guys that stood out, that committed and turned into some guys you were excited to watch?
Well, it's funny because the running back position is one that I think, it's always interesting because you look for that attribute. You wonder what the attributes are that you're looking for in running backs. And for me, it's just kind of the guys that can be patient, can kind of find those holes and kind of have that inherent just ability to kind of get through, and as much more so than like incredible athletic gifts. And that's why a guy that played with you has always been one of my favorites. Whenever we talk about great running backs or running backs, I always talk about Antonio Pittman. Antonio Pittman, had he stayed another year at Ohio State, I believe he left early, went to the NFL. He would have been right up there in the record books for yards. I mean, he had a tremendous career at Ohio State. Was just an underappreciated guy, a guy that came in with not a lot of fanfare and just always seemed to get 5, 6, 7 yards whenever he played. And, I love that about him. And, that's what I love about running backs. I love running backs that are tough, that don't fumble the football. And, I loved Michael Wiley coming out there. I liked Michael Wiley. I loved, the way that he played. I loved the fact that he was versatile enough that he even threw the ball out of the running back. We'd run that little halfback option with him sometimes. And, I like those running backs that can kind of get those tough yards, but, that they don't need to have everything blocked up perfectly. They just have that innate ability to find the hole. You have to get those 5, 6 yards, because those 60 and 70 yards, those are great, but it's those 5 and 6 yarders that kind of keep the chains moving. And those are the kind of guys that have always been my favorites.
I love this kid's film. I mean, the more I'm watching him, he's a tough kid. He's playing corner. Yeah, but it's funny because I think that you're right. I think guys that have a feel for the running game, guys that, how to have the vision, can set blocks up, guys that run hard. Like, that's something that's an underrated trait that people maybe don't account for. And it's not like something that you see in combine numbers. Is, does the guy run hard? Like, is he a tough out? Is he a guy that likes to bury people and run behind his pads and kind of get stronger as the game goes on? And not everybody's Derrick Henry, but you got to remember, Derrick Henry wasn't a first round pick, and I don't know how, but that's the guy that, as the game goes, people want nothing to do with tackling him because it's miserable. So, these guys that, like I said, this guy, he finishes in the end zone. He's tough. And Pitt was a guy, he wasn't as heralded as Beanie Wells. He wasn't as heralded as Mo Wells. Like, Mo Wells was an Army All-American. Pitt, was just like a big 33 North-South game kind of kid. I don't even think he played any of those because he actually came in early. But Pitt was a guy that maybe a 3-star, maybe a low 4-star. But, he was a guy that when he got the ball, he's the guy that should have played more in '04. And then in '05, when he took over as our feature back, he was fantastic. And he was a guy that, he had that big run against Notre Dame, winning touchdown against Michigan, was just a tough dude, tough as nails. '06, obviously, he still was you got the lion's share of the carries. Him and Beanie got a little fraction, Beanie probably got 30% of the carries that year. But Pitt was just a much tougher runner than Beanie was. Beanie was a lot more gifted. He was a 4'4" guy, 235 pounds, but Pitt ran harder and he was tougher. So, again, I always look for that, and I love Beanie and I love Pitt. I mean, those guys are both fantastic players, but the guys that just keep pouring it on. And Beanie, was a punisher too. He got a lot better. He was a lot better in '07 than he was in '06 in terms of running behind his pads and running tough. '07, obviously, he was our team MVP, ran for 1,700 yards. So he was a different animal when he became kind of the feature back. And I think that's an important thing I talk about. Some guys need 20, 25 carries to really be effective. And Beanie, as he got that heavier load in terms of his carries, he got much better. Because again, when people had to tackle him 25 times a game, they hated it. It was misery because he's going to probably kill you unless you get real low and go for his his ankles, his knees. Like you try to go after Beanie up high, you're going to get crushed. So, but no, I like this kid's film. I think he's going to be a nice ad. Nevada, any concern about potential transition into the portal after spring ball with how kind of overloaded our offensive running back room is?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a concern. It's a concern for a number of positions. I mean, I actually think we'll see move out. Like I said, we always hate to speculate on the guys, but I think in today's college football, I think I'd be shocked if we didn't have 3 or 4 or 5 guys leave after spring ball, and that's going to leave some holes. You're going to go from having an abundance to being sparse pretty quickly, but I think it's just the nature of college football in 2023, and we just all got to get used to it. And because as many guys as are going out, you could have guys coming in, and that just makes things that much better. But yeah, there's definitely going to be movement.
Yeah, it's going to be crazy. Shout out to Paul, dude. I love. You said he got a scan to determine if they could remove his lymph nodes and become cancer free. Paul, we're praying for you, bro. You're on every show. We appreciate you, my man. So we're thinking about you. I hope that is the case. So prayers up, my dude. That'd be awesome. Again, yeah, I just, it's part of the game, because again, when you have 4 to 6 guys that can start at 90% of the programs like a running back room does, if you're Chip Trevanum, if you're Evan Pryor, if you're the guys that aren't at the top of the food chain like Trey and Mayan are, I mean, it's just, again, I'm not suggesting they transfer, but if it happens, I'm not going to be surprised just because it's modern college football. Like, if you want to go and play in the NFL, you got to go play somewhere. You got to go be the guy somewhere. And you don't have to be the guy at Ohio State. It's funny because Chip's running mate, I believe his name is Rashard White, was a guy that started a bunch of games for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming down the stretch. And, they were, kind of, 1A and 1B at Arizona State. Chip's last year there when he was playing running back. So, again, when your boy is starting for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and you're kind of, number 4 or 5 on the depth chart, like, you got to go play somewhere. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Wow, this is a great question. What happened to Marcellus Frost? So his name was Marcel Frost, kid from Brush, came in my recruiting class. This is the Wayback Machine. So Marcel was a kid, super, super talented. One of the most talented players I've ever been around. Was a guy that would have easily been an NFL guy. Was a fantastic player, teammate. Was really coming on, and he had an issue literally going into training camp in 06, and it was literally like the month before camp started. I'm not going to put his issue out there, but it caused him to have to leave the team. And he transferred to Jackson State, and this is obviously before Deion or anything, but he super, super, athlete, was a kid that was really coming on. In 05, he really came on, played well against Michigan in that 05 game. Would have been our starting tight end in 06, and he had that issue, and he ends up having to transfer out. But he was a kid that whatever sport we played, if we played pickup basketball, Trestle, we used to do this tournament during winter conditioning where it was like literally the whole team was divided up into basketball teams, and we did like a full March Madness tournament where we all had 5-man teams. We played against each other, and we did like a tournament. If you lose, you're out, eliminated. And he was always like in the finals because he was so athletic. And we would play like slow pitch softball because we had this one day we'd do condition where we'd run, then we'd play like a team softball game, and it's slow pitch softball, and he would just absolutely crush the ball. Him and Todd Beckman hit the ball further than anywhere. But yeah, Marcel was a guy that was super talented. He's like one of the ultimate what could have been. It's funny because we had him and Luis Irizarry were in the same class, and they were both tight ends, and they both would have been really good players, but they both never amounted to what they could have been. So sad thing, but it is what it is. I actually, it's funny on the subject of Pittman. I'm going to actually, I've got one of my favorite Pittman plays queued up right here, so I'm actually going to pull that up for you guys. I think that this has both angles. Give me one second. But yeah, that's a great question. I kind of love the Wayback Machine. So we are going to go into the film room again to the 05 Fiesta Bowl. I know a lot of you guys are watching this. Again, this was a moment of great anxiety. It's a 7-point game, 2 minutes to go. Nevada, were you at this game? This is the '05 Festival versus Notre Dame. Is that maybe you?
Absolutely.
Were you?
Yeah.
Were
Yeah.
you?
No, no. I was up kind of up in the deck. I was about on the 30-yard line, the I guess the to the left side of the field. And yeah, I was on the side of the field where Teddy caught that first touchdown pass,
Got it.
that deep that deep moonshot.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
was
That was
yeah.
going down this way. I remember.
Yeah.
So this was we used to call this play 30. I believe this is 37 lead or 35 lead. I think it's 37 because where the fullback goes. So this is the play that locks it all down. We run right into the blitz, which is something that against Notre Dame, we decided we're gonna, if they bring the house, we're gonna run right into it. And we do right here. So I'm gonna run it. You guys remember this play. Doug goes up, gets a nice seal. Our receivers just do a fantastic job on the edge, and Pitt ices it down. And again, there's nothing in the universe that feels better than watching your running back run 70 yards or whatever this was, 65 yards. So, this is Doug Daddish, Rob Sims, Nick Mangold, TJ Downing, myself, and I think that's Marcel, or is that, trying to figure out who that is on the backside. That might be, I don't think it's Hamby. No, it looks like that might be Rory Nickel on the back. Stan White leading the way, then our boy Pitt. And so this is just a basic stretch play. Again, we're just trying to ice the game down, run into zone. I'm on the backside. I don't really do much. I get a hold of Zibikowski. He's down here. There's Zibby, my boy. So I just get a little nudge on Zibby. Zibby ran like a 4.4, so he's like the only guy that really could have caught Pitt. You see, he's actually the guy that's the closest to catching Pitt. So again, my nudge didn't do anything, but I did get a finger on him, so it did whatever. But this was just a fun one because we knew when they showed this look, and Doug does a good job because we would either decide if we're going to go out and block him with the tackle or if we're going to leave him for the fullback. And this week we decided to leave him for the fullback. So these guys do a nice full zone. TJ full zone. I end up leaving him on him because he gets stuck on him. So I just kind of creep up and get Zibby here. And then you see Pitt just kind of hit it right down the crease. And again, like when you're me and you're like, I'm literally right here, and you see Pitt, hitting his stride. I mean, it's the greatest feeling in the universe. I mean, you see me kind of just slowly doing my little Titanic arms out to the side thing because I'm so excited because I'm like, oh my God, we're going to win because now we're up 14 with 2 minutes to go and they're not possibly going to score on our defense again. So this was a gratifying, fantastic thing. But again, our edge blockers, our receivers really were good this year at blocking. So you see here, I don't know if that's Gonzo or who it is, and then you've got you got Teddy. I mean, Teddy Santonio about killed a guy earlier in the game on a crack block. I might try and find that play for you, but you see the difference of our receivers. Our receivers completely delete these two guys on the edge, and it puts a lot of stress on these linebackers and these backside safeties when you delete those two guys that are on the edge. Because again, that's the cool thing about when you had guys like Santonio and Teddy and Gonzo, because they were really good blockers. Santonio is one of the best blockers we ever had, and he never gets enough credit for that. So, all right, so this goes back to the start of the game. So maybe one day we'll sit and break that down. But it was so fun, man. Yeah, Teddy beat that corner by about 30 yards. It was unbelievable. So, but yeah, I don't know. It's really it's fun thinking about guys like Pitt and some of those guys that were unheralded guys that didn't get the recognition I felt like they deserved, or just absolute war daddies. We had guys like, Anthony Schlegel gets a little bit of recognition, but Anthony was a great player, super tough. Quinn Pitcock, guys that, I don't want to say that they're forgotten, but those are really good players, and I don't think that they really get the due that they deserve sometimes. So see if we got any questions, guys. You guys have got a ton of comments. Sorry, I've been breaking this stuff down. This is a great question. Nevada, do you think Brian Hartline, as offensive coordinator, will use the tight ends more this year? Then he mentions he loves the freshman kid coming in as a matchup nightmare. I love Jelani Thurman. He's one of my favorite kids I've ever watched on tape. I just don't know if a true freshman tight end will ever make an impact at Ohio State. I've yet to see it. But what are your thoughts on Brian Hartline potentially using the tight ends more? I'm not sure, given that Kevin Wilson was the tight ends coach / offensive coordinator. But what are your thoughts on that, Nevada?
Well, like you said, you generally use the guys that you're closest to, and whether it be if an offensive coordinator is the O-line coach, or if he's the tight ends coach like it was with Wilson, or if he's the wide receivers coach like he is with Hartline, you can generally tell where they're going to be be leaning towards. But at least, with wide receivers, he's thinking about throwing. And so tight ends do catch the ball. So I think you could make an argument for it from that standpoint. But I think we'll definitely have a wait and see as to Hartline's proclivities. But I would say we're definitely going to be pass first. I'd probably say it's pass to the wide receivers, and then the running backs and the tight ends are going to fight for the scraps after that.
Yeah, I think that sounds about accurate. Nevada, this is a question, and again, I say running back room best ever just because I think we're about six deep in there right now. If you count Dallin Hayden, Chip, some of the if Evan Pryor can come back to what he was before the knee injury, there's some major talent there. But is it the best ever? Hazelwood 55, great question. What about Archie Griffin, Pete Johnson, Brian Baschnagel, or am I going too far back in the Wayback Machine? That obviously, when you look at the totality of their careers, that obviously is in the conversation. And again, like with Trey and these guys, their careers aren't over. Their NFL careers aren't over. So do you think that this room could be better than that room, Nevada?
Well, first of all, Baschnagel, does he really count as a running back? I mean, I always thought Baschnagel was more kind of like a wing back kind of wide receiver typey kind of guy. So maybe they count him as a running back. But yeah, anytime you're getting back into the Archie Griffin stuff, that was kind of the golden era of Ohio State football as far as I'm concerned. As an Air Force brat growing up overseas, and we got 2 games a year that they show live. The Super Bowl and the Ohio State-Michigan game were the only 2 games that they show live. Everything else was on tape. So you have to get up at 1 o'clock in the morning and watch Cornelius Green and those glorious high White Sox play against Michigan. That was the best time. That was a young little 12-year-old Nevada buck that lived and died at every Ohio State victory and defeat. So yeah, I'll lean towards the Archie Griffin one just because it warms the cockles of my heart to talk about it.
Yeah, and Archie is the best. I mean, he is like one of the nicest guys ever. This guy, I'd love to interview one of these days if we could ever get that done. But he, good dude. Let me see, Jihad Carter. Where does Jihad Carter fit, Nevada? Do you think he ends up being a nickel, or what are your thoughts on that?
Well, like I said, I mean, whether we call it nickel, whether we call it safety, we just, I've kind of given up kind of having those, trying to make those distinctions. But what I've heard is that they've been trying to, run the third safety of Styles when they're in running downs and Jihad when they're in passing downs, and I think that's what they'll kind of start the spring, and we'll see how it kind of breaks down after that. I think Lathan's a guy that's got a position on lockdown. I think Josh Proctor, I mean, you got to think he's got to play coming back again for this year. So that that leaves some very talented guys competing for other plays. So we'll see. I mean, could Josh get run? Yeah, absolutely. Could Lathan get run? I don't think so. But Jihad's going to be there, good-looking athlete, kind of trying to find his way, trying to figure out the defense. The guys that have been here last year have a huge edge because the defense is, it's a little complicated to decide, what everybody's doing and how you're supposed to react. And that's the beauty of this 2023 defense is we've got a lot of guys in year 2 of the Knowles install, and they will, it generally means the defense is going to be a lot more coherent than it even was last year. So they've got a big edge.
Totally agree. So I found the Ted Ginn deep shot. Again, this is just so fun to watch. Like I'm not trying to go back in the Wayback Machine too much, but when you see how fast Ted Ginn is versus, Notre Dame's got 4-star guys at corner and stuff, and Ted literally just runs past them. Like they can't turn around fast enough. Obviously, this is the tight shot. I think TJ might have false started there, but it's fine. We tuned that guy up, but I mean, it's like just, because again, this is. There's fun things like when you play offensive line, it's fun to like kill guys and stuff. Like, this guy spins in right here and I kind of tattoo him right in the ribs. Like that's fun. But like when you see a guy like Ted get that deep behind somebody, you're just like, holy cow. Like it's just amazing. Like it's just so fun to watch. But I think Jihad's it's gonna be fascinating to see where they put him, who they put at what safety position between the nickel, the adjuster, and the bandit. Again, like my rule of thumb generally is The bandit is the bench. The bench is like the short side of the field. The adjuster is the middle of the field, generally kind of like what you think of as a free safety. The nickel is to generally the field, which is the wide side of the field. If you don't know what that means, just write a comment and I'll try to explain a little bit better for you guys. But I had to kind of remember who goes where, and then I look at the body types and the skill sets, and that's why I think Lathan is a perfect adjuster, because he is the guy kind of at the top of the defense, kind of like what Jordan Fuller was in 19. He would have been a great spot there. Malik Hooker probably would have been the greatest adjuster of all time, just because of his range and his ability to get his hand on the football and snag it and go the other way with it. That would have been really fun to watch.
I kind of like to ask the board right now, just to kind of a vote, just like a thing. Greatest blocks in Ohio State history would be, like Vaughn Broadnax's famous block against three guys to spring Schleicher in the end zone, or Barton's block against Zibikowski there on the Pittman run. Which ones do we think was
the one where I just barely touch him and I don't do anything?
Yeah,
it's like it
was that the one of the greatest blocks? I mean, I like the way that you featured that, and it's like, the hand that you got on him there. That was a great block there, Kirk. Well done.
Well, he could run. I mean, Zibby, and again, I got to know Zibby because we had the same agent when we came out for the draft, but he's actually like one of the coolest guys ever. But so when I was playing in this game, I hated him. I was like, oh, he's a douchebag. I don't care about your gold gloves. I got a helmet on, whatever. But when you see how fast he was, because you got to remember, Anthony Gonzalez had almost the worst play ever when he caught that ball. They ruled it, an incompletion, thank God. But when Zibby picked that thing up, man, he was gone. I mean, we weren't even trying to catch him because he was so fast. And it was funny because TJ actually got clipped. So the whole thing would actually came back if they would have ruled it an actual fumble. But yeah, it just was, Zibby was fast, dude. I mean, that was like one of those guys where there's certain guys that announcers love, and Tom Zibikowski was the guy that announcers love more than anybody, because they love talking about gold gloves boxing. It's almost hilarious, and they do it like ad nauseum. Yeah, Proctor versus Wisconsin. Again, that's like one of those things where, like Josh Proctor's been, that game seems like it happened 10 years ago, but when Josh Proctor killed that guy at the end of the Wisconsin game, it was like unbelievable how good it was. And again, that's like kind of the ability that we're kind of dying to see this year, is see if Josh Proctor can put it.
But the greatest thing ever on that Josh Proctor hit is Brutus's reaction on the sideline.
Oh, of course.
When Brutus covers his eyes, that was the all-time greatest mascot reaction. I don't know. We'll have to get that on tape and break that down at some point. But that was the best.
Yeah, we're absolutely gonna have to. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, I think Orlando had a really good pancake against the Penn State guy. I'm looking at the comments. I'm sure Kirk will say an Orlando Pace pancake, right? Because that's what I would say. I'd say an Orlando Pace pancake would be the greatest block ever.
Yeah, so you're a big Orlando Pace. You're a big Orlando Pace fan, exactly.
It's my boy, man. I love Orlando. It's way bigger than I was. Yeah, his range is deadly. All right, we got any final questions? We'll kind of wrap this thing up. This has been a great show. Appreciate you guys. Again, shout out where you're from in the comments. We love when you guys do that. It's always fun to kind of see who's watching from where. But yeah, and the kid that we added, Sam Williams-Dixon, I think he'll have a nice career as an Ohio State Buckeye. I'm super excited to see him do his thing. I think it's going to be really interesting to see, how the running back deal shakes out. I think it's going to be interesting to see who ends up staying after spring ball is going to be really fascinating. I think that last year, it wasn't an accident that we featured Evan Pryor in the spring game. We featured G. Scott. Those are, I think it'll be interesting to see who we feature this year in the spring game, because it is kind of their last look or their last taste of what, to expect going into the season. And, after watching Evan Pryor in that game, we were thinking he's going to be a really dynamic part of the offense, and he had that unfortunate ACL. But, it's always interesting to see, who does the spring game correlate to actual production in season? Because I've seen some guys like Solomon Thomas had 7 sacks in one spring game, and I don't know if he had 2 sacks his entire 5-year career at Ohio State. But I did just find the play I was looking for, so I'm going to leave you guys with my favorite block in Ohio State history, and this is one that'll probably never be duplicated, because they would probably throw you in jail. Let me see. All right, so we got my boy right up here. Got my boy Tone Holmes right here. So Tone is from Muck City, which is Belglade, Florida. So he's from the Muck, and he sends this kid into the nether. He sends this kid into the netherworld right here. So this is great. So yeah, we're running a play. This was called a 108 Z around left. So this is, the Z is obviously Ted Ginn. 108 was a play that we ran. It was kind of like an option play where we all kind of come this way. And we ran this a lot with Troy this year against Iowa. We just absolutely destroyed Iowa running this play. It was funny because it was an option play, but Troy never pitched it. He'd always keep it, and it was just it was like stealing. So we kind of we give the same option action here, except Teddy's coming back this way, right? So you see how much these guys overplay it. Like the linebackers flying over here, these guys are flying over here. So you got Santonio right here is just the predator stalking this guy, and just absolutely kills this nickelback. Kills him. Watch. Dead. Boom. And he says something, because you actually see his head bob, because he says something that was amazing. Because I heard what he said, and it was pretty bad. I can't repeat it on here because we'd be demonetized on YouTube, but it was pretty good. But that's my favorite block ever. Obviously today that'd be targeting. You'd probably be thrown in prison for blocking somebody like that. But I loved Santonio Holmes because he was just a beast. He was a monster. So again, I'm not going to pick a Orlando Pace pancake. I'm going to pick Santonio Holmes crack, because he just, like, you see, again, this is a linebacker. So, I mean, this is Santonio probably weighed, buck 85, buck 90, and he comes in on this guy, and this guy just doesn't see him coming. So this would be targeting, ejection, thrown out of the game. I'll run it at full speed, but you see, Teddy coming full speed, man, boom. And you see Robbie's out here. Rob Sims comes out, gets a great block here. And you see Dadish, who actually Dadish could run really well. And, people always laughed at him because, like, oh, he looked like he was running in, quicksand. And I'm like, well, yeah, Ted runs a 4.3 and Doug runs probably like a 5 flat. Yeah. So, Doug's trucking it, but, this was just like one of those, again, like, we had so many fun plays, like so many surreal plays in this game. And then you see, like, underrated Gonzo right here tracks this guy down, busting it, kind of just getting in. I mean, you just got to kind of get in the way, you don't want to clip a guy or anything, but there were some really cool plays in that game that were kind of iconic. So there's my favorite block ever. So you guys can all make fun of me for picking a wide receiver as my favorite block ever. But hey, when you got a guy that wants to he's not scared to get his nails dirty like a lot of these receivers are, like, you got to applaud that, because I love Santonio, man, and he was nasty that game. And he was nasty against Marlon Jackson against Michigan. That 05 Michigan game, he was eating those guys' lunch, and it was fun to be a part of and fun to watch. So any final thoughts, Nevada, as we wrap this thing up? We appreciate you guys all being a part of this one.
Just amazing that 05 Notre Dame game had so many iconic blocks on it. The Barton Zibikowski block and the Santonio Holmes crackback block there. That was really, really something, man. That was fun. That was a fun trip down memory lane.
Oh, I cut Trevor Law so bad in that game. He goes flying later in the game. He comes like across TJ's face, and I just put my helmet right through his knee, and he just goes like sideways. It was great. That was one of my favorite blocks ever, because that really had to have hurt, because I got him on the side of the knee where there's no pad, and crown of the helmet to the kneecap. So no, it was good though. So we will, what defensive end gave me the most problems? I don't know, probably, if you want to go with Ohio State, Will Smith, obviously, because I was a freshman. God, I'd say Mario Williams was good. I mean, Mario Williams went number 1 overall. He's 6'7", long arms, 295 pounds. Didn't give up a sack, but he was just a terror. There was a guy named Erasmus James who played at Wisconsin. He was the defensive player of the year in 2004. He was probably the best guy I ever went against. He went first round. Was a bust in the NFL. He got high load against Purdue, screwed his knee up, was never really as explosive after that, but probably Erasmus, I'd say, from Wisconsin. He was really good. So I think that's it. All right, Nevada, I'm going to let this thing go. Any final words? You good? Zibikowski block, Orlando Pace?
No, didn't you play against some guys in Penn State that were pretty good? Some guys at Penn State gave you some problems?
Well, I played against, like, Tom Bahali was a first-round pick.
Yeah.
I played. Well, the funny thing is, I played against him in 2004, and I shut him out. And I honestly didn't think he was good. I thought he was like okay, but I didn't think he was like a top 20 pick in the draft. And then in '05, he was like the most hyped guy in the world. And I was like, that's the same guy I played last year. And Penn State, they don't flip sides. So when you play against the guy, you play against him every snap. He's not going left and right. And so I blocked him in '04 the entire game, and like no sacks, no pressures. Like then in '05 we had to go out there, and they're like, yeah, he's, Joe Paterno's like, oh, he should be an All-American and he should be up for the Hendricks Award and all this stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I played that guy and I thought he stunk. I mean, he was like probably like that year in '04, I played against Trent Cole, Lamar Woodley, Matt Roth. I mean, these guys are all went in the first or second round. I mean, it was crazy. Mario Williams, Manny Lawson, both went first round. So like it was like murderer's row my freshman year. And Tamba like didn't even really stand out. And he ends up being drafted, plays 12 years in the league or whatever. But I didn't think he was anything like crazy. But, then in '05 I get hurt. And he has that game-ending sack where he hits Troy and Troy does like a backflip because he hit him so hard, and that sucked because I literally was standing there in a sweatsuit saying I locked that guy down the entire game, and then that happened, so that sucked. But no, yeah, I thought Tamba was good, but he wasn't like, oh my god, like how am I ever going to get past this guy? Because he really was just a bull rusher. He didn't have a lot of flexibility or wiggle or anything. He had good hands, but if you're stronger than a guy with good hands, then you can generally keep your hands on him. So. Just my opinion. Again, he had a great career as an NFL Pro Bowler, but when I played him in '04, I did not think he was good. I actually had my best block of my life against him. I pancaked him on the block-o, and I wish I had that damn film. I don't have it, but it was really good film. So, all right, we are going to wrap this thing up. Appreciate you guys as always. Thank you guys. Great show tonight. Again, great feedback. Super lively chat. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, I wish San Antonio would have went to Cleveland instead of the Steelers, but the Browns hate Ohio State. They never take Ohio State guys. So, but we appreciate you guys so much for being a part of this. If you guys love this stuff, you got to subscribe to BuckeyeScoop.com because we do this all day, every day. Our message board is crazy right now. It's so fun. The biggest Ohio State fans, some of the smartest people you'll ever talk to. Just a great career. Love being on there. But again, we'd love for you guys to be a part of it with us. Again, thank you guys so much for being on the show. Great questions as always. We appreciate all of our regulars that are on here. You guys are the best. On your way out, if you could leave us a like, click subscribe, click alert. Again, we crank this stuff out for you guys. We love making this great content for you guys. We appreciate you guys as always. So that's a great way to help us. If you click that like button, it's huge for us. So shout out where you're from in the comments. I want to hear where you're from. Shout out where are you guys going for spring break? I want to know. You guys heading to Florida, Texas, Vegas, California, out of the country. I've gotten Cabo. We have a huge thread on our board. A lot of guys going to Cabo. So hope you guys are safe. Hope you guys have a blast during spring break. We will be cranking content the whole time. So while you guys are on the beach, tune us in on your phone. Get those AirPods out and you'll enjoy it. So appreciate you guys as always. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll talk to you guys soon. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Go Bucks. See you guys tomorrow.